And we're back on Second Street talking about diversity, equity, inclusion policies. Mark, before the break, Sam gave us an example of, you know, one of these DEI policies in practice, one that he thinks that doesn't make a lot of sense. Is there an example maybe that you've noticed over the years where you think, yeah, this really doesn't make sense for a workplace, or maybe it's a government institution, whatever?
Sure, there's several. And there's a lot, but let me give you two. Toronto's Metropolitan
Mhm.
University, formerly Ryerson. Back in the fall, it was revealed that they were basically denying candidates to their medical school that had higher GPAs, higher MCAT scores, to prefer those who did not, because those with higher scores might have been the wrong color. To me, it doesn't matter what the color is, but the point is, they said we need diversity. Well, no, actually, what you need is people who understand the human body, have high MCAT scores, because when they're operating on you, that's all you care about. And again, there's lots of wrong
Mhm.
assumptions that go into DEI. First of all, that we should be divided by race or color, ethnicity, or gender. You can divide people up in
Mhm.
any number of ways, and that's been the problem in human history, finding something to wrongly divide people on based on unchangeable characteristics. The second example I'd give you is from the University of Calgary a couple of years ago. The Haskayne School of Business advertised for a very specific position for one color. And it doesn't matter what the color is, that's irrelevant. Could have been purple for all I care, because I don't care if a profession is made up of all these Asian Canadians, or someone of Sam's skin color or my skin color. It doesn't matter to me. What you want is merit. But this position was advertised based on color only. And I
Mhm.
said to the,
Mhm.
the dean at the time, I said, are you kidding me? The argument is that, if you're not of this skin color, you're privileged. I said, so you're saying the granddaughter of a Holocaust survivor would be considered privileged and thus ineligible for this position, the granddaughter of a Holocaust survivor. I mean, how can you morally justify that? Because, of course, we know what the
Mhm.
Jews went through in terms of the Holocaust and surviving the Holocaust. So to me, that's the absurdity of it. You're judging people based on these artificial categories that they may not even want to be in, um, and upon unchangeable characteristics, as opposed to trying to treat people as individuals. And we're just making the same mistake made in history, but under different justifications.
May I add one
I,
more
I want to
example that I think?
dig into the sorry, Sam, just one sec. You left us hanging there, Mark. How did that university dean respond when you raised that?
Well, he gave me the cliches, basically. Well, don't you know that actually we've had
Uh,
institutional racism and this and that? And again, that takes a long
okay.
time to unpack, which I've tried to do in books. We do in our DEI study. But frankly, he wasn't all that informed. Again, he kind of assumed there was this big economic pool of money out there and that it never changed, as opposed to understanding people throughout history have created to economic growth. Now, at some points, of course, some people have been locked out. If you're an American slave in 1850, there is privilege. The white slave master has privilege and you don't, right? But that's not Canada in, the 1980s or frankly 2025.
Right. Okay. Sam, you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, just really quickly. Another example of this, a very egregious example, is during the vaccine rollout a few years ago. I think it was the city of Hamilton explicitly mentioned that they're going to give preferential treatments to people who are minorities. So if you were an
Mhm.
indigenous, if you were black, if you were brown, whatever you were, you would be first in line to get the vaccine over white people, right? Which is just awful, but that was their thinking. And the reason is because if you believe that there is this subjective systemic racism that's only really judged on disparities, all right, not based on
Mm.
laws, not based on policies, but just based on disparities, you're going to have subjective vague answers to fix these issues at a systemic level.
No, that's a good point. Mark, we've only got about a minute before the break, but let's start to dig into that report that your organization just put out. Could you give us the sort of the high level
Sure.
explanation of what you found on campus?
The University Discrimination Index, published by the Aristotle Foundation, you can find it at aristotlefoundation.org, surveyed 10 of the universities, top 10 universities in Canada by student population, one per province. What we found was that out of basically 500 job postings, academic job postings at these 10 universities across the country, 98% required some sort of DEI statement or statement of fealty to DEI. Now, not all of them
Mhm.
necessarily actively discriminated after that point. We don't know. We don't know who they hired. But certainly it's a cause for concern. And again, it's an attempt to argue that outcomes. If you're not exactly proportional, your group isn't, in X faculty, there must be discrimination. Well, what if people from Purplandia came in the last 10 years to Canada as an immigrant cohort? You wouldn't expect to see them at the top of faculties or, businesses or government, right? I mean, there's all sorts of factors that go into outcomes.
Okay, listen, we'll dig more into that report when we come back after this commercial break.